right, the recording is started. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Hello and welcome to another edition of the One-on-One, brought to you by Go Media, and bringing you the bump by bump rundown in this wide world of go-go. Continuing with the true stories of the path makers from deep inside the pocket of go-go. You know, past episodes of the One-on-One can be seen on the social media platforms as well as the Go website. And me, I'm your host, Kato Hammond. I'm a musician and the author of the book. You see the book right there, Take Me Out to the Go-Go, an autobiography from my point of view in this thing. So if you're watching and listening, thank you very much for your support. This particular episode right here, I'm going to call the Family Affair episode, because I had more than one guest on it this week, and you'll see the relation why I have them all on, and they all from in different locations. Some of them in their vehicle. So without further ado, let's get this thing going. All right. Back into the One-on-One with Kato. I am, like I said, Kato, your host. And today we have a special guest, a guest of the folks. Like I said, I'm calling this episode the Family Affair, because we got some very significant folks who made impacts in this go-go music culture and music as a whole, especially in this Washington, D.C., DMV area. I want to welcome right now my guest, Big Brother Too Tall Steve Coleman. He gonna introduce himself to you. Big Brother Kiggo Wellman. He gonna introduce himself to you. And Big Brother Syeed Mahdi. He's gonna introduce himself to you. And I just want to say before we go further, I want to let you know I never done a joint with a whole group of folks before, so I had to set my questions up. So we're gonna start the questions off with individual questions as individually, then collective questions as collective. So first of all, how you folks doing, man? I'm talking too much. How y'all doing?
Yeah, thanks for having us, Kato.
All right, good.
I'm better than good.
All right, so like I say, let me just introduce. First of all, I want to take this direction going to Steve, who I wrote Too Tall Steve because in this industry, we all know him from Too Tall Steve. That's what we called him. Everybody had nicknames, and if you can go back and listen to EU songs, grooves, especially when it came to the horn section, Steve played trumpet, and one of my biggest joints I always remember is that's Mike, that's Too Tall Steve, and they hit that da 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 da. You know what I'm saying? So that's Steve. How's it going, Steve?
Everything's great, man. I'm happy to be here with you, and I appreciate you giving us the platform.
Hey, man, I appreciate y'all coming on more than you know, and the people gonna find out, because one of the biggest reasons I titled the show Family Affair, because in essence, all of you guys are related. You know what I'm saying? So this is a Family Affair edition, whereas, just like we talking to Jacksons, or we talking to Silvers, or we talking to five stair steps, or we talking to Isleys, or any other, the Osmonds, or any other family that has done it. This is a family who has done it and made a mark in this music business. I want to start with, first of all, I want to hear Kiggo and Syeed's voice too. What's going on, fellas?
What's happening, Kato? How you doing, brother?
All right. First of all, I'm gonna equate one band with each one of y'all, and then when I get into your stories, you can tell me further. But with the band I'm going to name was Steve, golly, I'm gonna say EU since I mentioned the EU. With the band with Kiggo, I'm gonna say, golly, I'm gonna say a little bit in the Masters, but I know it's been more than that. With the band with Syeed, without a doubt, it's Prophecy. I'm not sure if it's more than that, but we're gonna find out here. But Steve, first of all, starting off with you, one of the biggest questions I really wanted to ask you. First of all, let everybody know what instruments you play.
Well, I am a trumpet player. I play brass, and I'm one of probably the only Wellman that's a horn player that actually went on to be a professional horn player. Our family mostly has percussionists.
Yeah, we're going to get into that. I'm ready for those questions as well. Believe me. We're going to get in. Definitely. So, and I didn't mention, Steve is the trumpet player. Is trumpetist a word?
Trumpeter.
Trumpeter, okay. Kiggo is the drummer, and Syeed is a vocalist. So, I mean, you coming from different parts of the stage on there, but I do know, I want to mention, since you did mention it, they are part of the Wellman family, who is a strong family that has a strong lineage in the go-go music culture. Not just go-go music culture, but we talking even before go-go. We talking, I mean, some people may think it began with Sugarfoot Ricky Nelson, but y'all gonna school me. I'm thinking it began with his father. You know what I'm saying? So, but y'all gonna school me on all that. But so it is a band that was definitely known for the percussion area. But so what got you first into playing trumpet?
Well, I grew up in Sea Pleasant, Maryland, and at Highland Park Elementary, which was the elementary school for my community, Highland Gardens.
I went there. I went to Highland Park.
You did? Wow.
Yeah.
So when I was in the 4th grade, they introduced the school music program. They brought all the kids from the elementary school into the cafeteria, and they had 3 pictures up. They had a clarinet, an alto saxophone, and a trumpet. My sister chose the clarinet. I looked at the 3 instruments, and I said, the brilliant person that I am, I said, I'm going to choose the instrument with the least amount of keys, because that has to be the easiest. And I chose the trumpet. And that's absolutely why I chose to be a trumpeter. And of course, I turned out that wasn't as brilliant as I thought I was.
I was going to ask you about that, because I just want to say, I want to ask you about that. I just want to say, and I know you have a couple of years ahead of me. I too went to Highland. I only went to Highland Park up into the 2nd grade. Then that's when it closed, and we got bused to other schools. However, you mentioned the trumpet, and I remember myself, the same kind of thing happening, and I picked cornet, which is a smaller trumpet.
Yes.
And what turned me off from it, and let me ask you, was that an issue with you, was how it made my lips feel? Was that an issue with you?
Yes, it was. And not only that, the degree of difficulty. I remember as a child, my parents went to Chuck Levin's, which was on 8th Street at the time. This is before Martin King was assassinated. So he took us to Chuck Levin's, and you could rent or lease an instrument in case your kid decided they didn't want to continue with it. You can return it. So he leased a trumpet, and I remember starting to play. And I'm practicing every day. My sister's practicing. Almost everybody in our community had some type of horn or violin, because the music program, most of the kids and all my peers, we all chose something to play. Some of us stayed with us, some of us didn't. But my sister became very proficient on clarinet when I could barely get a sound out of the trumpet. So in those days, I was a little scared of my dad. So I went to my mom and I said, Mom, you think if I asked Dad, can I switch to saxophone instead of trumpet? Because the saxophone players, they were up and running. I'm still just barely getting the note out. So she said, yeah, go ask him. I went and asked my dad. He looked at me. He said, You know, you started it, and you ain't gonna quit. And that was it. So when I walked out the room, I knew it wasn't in those days, and I wasn't going to try to negotiate with him. When he said whatever he said, that was it. So at that point, I decided to make the most of it, and I started woodcutting and spent all my time perfecting, you know, the art of playing the trumpet.
Okay. All right, Kiggo. I want to ask you that, since I'm getting all that noise from. I want to ask you the same question. You being a drummer, is that the first instrument you started on, and what initially inspired you to start playing the drums?
Well, initially, I had an uncle, Ghost, and a cousin, Bootleg. Both were drummers by the time I came along. So naturally, I would mess around with their drum sets. I would have to sneak pretty much to do it. So the first instrument that I was trained on was trumpet as well. So I chose the trumpet because of my cousin Steve played trumpet. So
Okay.
in that time, we did have a lot of drummers. So everybody pretty much in my family has rhythm and can get on the drum set and play a basic beat. Even a lot of my aunts, they just naturally can pick it up, right? So my cousin kind of influenced me when I was in elementary school, when I was getting a really liking to music. He was like, "Well, we got enough drummers in the family. You should try something else." So, and this is him coming from the R&B world to the beginning of the go-go world. So I tried it, and I played it all through school up to junior high, and I was good at it. I was good. Like he used to let me. You can imagine started in second grade. So by the time
Okay.
I was in the third grade, you can imagine me walking down the street. He would let me uh he would let me borrow his home. I'll carry a flugelhorn and a to elementary school in a double case. So my peers, they were freaked out. So they were like, "Man, this guy got two horns." And my cousin, that's like around the time Chuck Mangione was hot on the radio, with that
Yeah.
feel good song. So my cousin would
Yeah.
come and we would take notebook paper and all of the early EU songs and Chuck Mangione, the beginning of it, he would write it out. Because as he said, it was only three notes. And he would take a pencil and circle them in. And he said, "This is what you
Okay.
do, Kiko. You play this horn line." He would play it with me, right? And he'd say, "Now
Right.
you
Right.
do." And that he would give me radio music to practice to keep me influenced. Or the first horn line I learned was "Blow Your Horn" by EU. Dun, but dun, 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 dun. It's
Yeah.
only two
Yeah.
notes, three
Yeah,
notes.
buddy.
But
Yeah.
I
They
felt
both
so
on.
good in elementary school playing these songs with my peers, because other than that, we were just playing Mary Had a Little Lamb. You know what I mean? So he kept me interested by giving me songs that were easy to learn, right?
Okay.
And as he did, my mom rented my trumpet from Briggs Music at Landover Mall, which also gave me trumpet lessons for getting the horn from them. So that was my first taught. But the drum thing always was there by default. I
Okay.
didn't even want to play drums. Uh, One of the guys in our little kid go-go band, we was playing in the lodge, and it was me on trumpet. Wally started out on and my friend Moochie had sax. So we was in our first go-go band, and I was playing trumpet. You know what I mean? So that's how that
Oh wow,
kind
I
of
never
worked
knew that.
until they yeah, we had a little band in the neighborhood, and
Right.
Keith Thompson was was aspiring bass player. He was learning bass, with all them guys, him and Tyrone Randall told me, man, you should play drums. And I didn't want to, but the go-go thing was happening, and I was a natural at it. But I really wanted to play the trumpet in the band. Like I was learning the steps and everything. So that's what you that's what you had to do, you know. So that was that, you know. That was that.
Now see, that's new. I never knew that. But Syeed, I want to ask the same question. Come from a family of drummers, majority of drummers, and it sounds like even the women too. And I want to get into that later. But you took a whole different route because you became the front person of the band. So how did that come about? You know what I'm saying? How did your voice evolve through that?
Well, I really had no interest in being in the band. I was good with just going to the Go-Go's. I was always at the Go-Go's. You know, I grew up Washington D.C. You know, they was everywhere. You know, I was the Atlas. You know, Maverick Room. You know, all those spots was close. I could walk to the Washington Coliseum. I was used to going to the Go-Go's, and it wasn't until I moved to Maryland, and a buddy of mine was like, let's start a band. And I was like, and do what? You know, I was like, and do what? You know, I don't play no instrument. I mean, I can play around on the congos. I can hit a beat on the congos. You know, I can hit a beat on the drums, but I'm no drummer or no congo player. And he was like, well, we can rap. And I was like, rap. So what is it gonna be? Two of us rapping? He was like, yeah, me and you. And that friend is my good buddy DJ Dewan Mans. And to this day I tell anybody he the one that got me into this stuff. So we started our own little band, and you know, we thought we was doing great, you know, like you always do. You're in there, you having fun, you doing great. And I was going to Oxon Hill High School, and everybody was talking about this band from Oxon Hill called Prophecy, you know, and I went to see them one time outside, and they had all the equipment, but speaker wise, they just had two speakers sitting on elementary school desks out in this little cul-de-sac. And
were they short speakers? Remember those short speakers?
I know they were serving Vegas speakers. They was mids with horns in them. That's all I knew. That's it. No bottoms, no nothing. But when I say they was on point with everything that they was doing, I looked at my own band and was like, we just making noise.
Okay.
But we was just making noise. It was like we was just playing. I mean, we had stuff together, but it was not choreographed the way they had it. So that was my mission. It was to one day get into Prophecy. And that's really not how it became, because actually when I got with Prophecy, I went up there and Kevin Jackson taught me how to run the board. So I ran the board for maybe really I ain't even run the board. All of this babysitting, he set it, and I just made sure everything went right. And they eventually wanted a timbali player, rototom player, and they asked me, could I play? And I said, yeah, I could play. Couldn't play the timbales, rototoms, worth nothing. But my good friend Slim Jim used to keep his rototoms in our basement. So I went home and practiced on his stuff. And that was the first instrument that I actually played in the band, was the rototoms. And then a little while later, the lead talker, Lorenzo White, from Prophecy, went into the military, and Kevin Jackson knew that I was lead talking for my band, Omega, and asked me could I do it. And I said, sure. And that's how I became the lead talker to this day from Prophecy.
Okay. Okay, great. So Syeed, right there, he already brought up what I was gonna go next, and I was gonna start with Steve. I want to right now, before we go further into the collective question, I still want to do the individual, but I want to go through the resume, starting with Steve. Once again, Just run through the resume. Now we talking, Steve. We talking you. You talking about before the '68 riots and all, the murder assassination of Martin Luther King. So I would assume we talking 50 years of you in the music game. You know what I'm
Absolutely.
saying? So can you just run a list so people will know who we talking to? Because some people, those who do know, but there's a whole lot you ought to know it. Just go on social media. There's a whole lot of people gonna have no clue of its history and all that. So can you just run down? Put it this way. I already know we talking. You mentioned Face Destiny, and I remember Face Destiny as a kid. Like I say, when I was in that area, there was two bands I looked up to in the area. One was to the left of me, and the other was to the right of me. To the left of me, with Highland Gardens was, I considered Face Destiny from Highland Gardens because I remember the big Face Destiny truck that used to be parked
Yes.
right out there. But also I remember another truck to the right of me was a band called the Stratocasters. So there were other bands in the area. I remember Jaguar and all that other. I remember in my neighborhood there was a guitar player named Louis John, and he used to teach me stuff. But I'll name the list of bands in the timeline. If it didn't start with Face Destiny, give me a timeline of the bands that you played with.
Okay, well, we actually started a neighborhood band when I was in the 7th grade, and with 6 guys from our neighborhood, and we called ourselves the Young Sound. Now, this is long before there was go-go music.
Right.
And so we mimicked, I would say we mimicked James Brown and Kool in the Gang. There were 6 of us. None of us were vocalists, but we all were, played instruments. So there was Tony Thomas, who played the drums, Kenneth Bay Jackson, who played the bass, Reggie McPherson, who played the guitar, Keith Diggs, who played the trumpet, and Dorian Witcher, who played the alto saxophone, and myself. And we went from one of our basements to the next, and we were learning songs, learning to play by ear. And our first gig, what year was that? Maybe 1971. And so our first gig was at Thomas Pullen Junior High School. We played my 8th grade prom. And we were scared to death, and we had a look in our eye. We were just startled, but we went ahead with our set. We got through the night. Then we, as we grew a little older, we didn't like the name Young Sound. So we changed the name to Face Destiny. We added a few members, Paul Frazier, Debbie Jackson, and most importantly, an organist named Lowell Tucker, who was quite a maestro in himself. And that band lasted into the 1978, 79, when the most local bands were transitioning to a go-go beat. And our band, unfortunately, we weren't one of those bands that were willing to transition. And there were a lot of other really great bands around Washington, D.C. who refused to transition as well. And that was a weird period of time because if you didn't, it was only a few that did. If you didn't, your gigs dried up. So when my band disbanded, my great friend Gregory Elliott, who I've known because Experience Unlimited and Face Destiny often played together. We were kind of like the kings of the Prince George's County recreation circuit.
Yes.
That's where the young bands played. And like there, we would open up for them in Washington, D.C., playing the high schools because they had no rec centers. And they would open up for us in Prince George's County. And both of our managers realized it was good for both bands because that gave each band more opportunity to play. So there was the leader of EU at the time. This is before go-go music. They had a front man named Oscar who played the saxophone. He was a great front man as well. Sugar Bear stood in the back, didn't say a word, didn't have a microphone, but he was a hell of a bassist. and he used to play his bass. He had a little squirrel's tail on the end of his bass. But Bear, trust me when I tell you, from a musical perspective, Sugar Bear was one of the best bass players in town. And I'm talking, we're all young. We're still in high school. And so to answer your question, the Young Sound became Face Destiny. We disbanded in late 78, maybe early 79. Sugar Bear called me shortly thereafter, and I joined Experience Unlimited. I was with Experience Unlimited until maybe 84. And I took a pause from playing to deal with some life things. I'm a young man. I wanted to buy my first home and things of that nature. So I set music aside temporarily and then came back into it, starting when Chuck Brown called me. But in between that, when I started to play with Experience Unlimited, the band was going through some personnel changes. And fortunately, I was able to suggest and bring in some of the newer band members into the band, like CJ, the tenor sax player, and Go-Go Mike, who became my favorite horn section. Because when I joined Experience Unlimited, Vernon McDonald was the sax player, and Hunter was the trombone player. And they were great musicians.
Right.
You know, for whatever reason, the two of them kind of moved on from the band, and I was able to bring in guys that I knew I could be comfortable with. And that was a great thing. So during the period with Experience Unlimited, CJ's first cousin, Red, from Red and the Boys, was about to do some recording. So CJ asked me to play on the recording of Moving and Grooving. I had no idea what the song was, but I did it as a favor to CJ, who was a very dear friend of mine, a fellow horn mate. We went to New York and recorded Moving and Grooving at the Hit Factory in Manhattan. And, you know, when you do as much as recording as we did in those days, you never know what happens. With a lot of those recordings you never hear again. But Moving and Grooving took off, and next thing you know, it was on the Billboard charts.
Right.
And then I went on to play with the Searchers until I stopped playing in the middle of 1989.
So the Soul Searchers, Chuck Brown and the Soul Searchers, because you're even on the Go-Go Live at the Capitol Center playing with Chuck Brown and the Soul Searchers. So that was the last Go-Go band you played with?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
And then you went into adult mode, as we call it.
I guess you could say so. You know, and you know, with no regrets, because life has been good, and I really appreciate and love my life as it is. But I'm always a part. I feel like I'm a part of the music community here in Washington D.C. and always will be. But the legacy lives on through Kiggo and Syeed.
Yeah, we're gonna go there, believe me.
So you know,
but I wanted to ask you. Something you touched on, I want to go back to right quick, because I think that was a real significant thing. How you mentioned there were bands, and Face Destiny was one of those. When that, and I remember clearly when that era happened, when some bands started to go that go-go route. Because like I say, I remember Face, and they weren't ones to go to go-go route. Stratocaster, there was another band called Up Felma Heights, I believe. They used to practice up there through the woods. Black Love, but it's some the bands who didn't, like you say, kind of fell off or was lacking shows. But the members from the bands, you were starting to see in the go-go bands, like yourself, and even like if I think of Black Love, I remember Leon and them eventually went to Petworth and all that kind of stuff. Can you expand on that a little bit, just a little more?
Yes, and so I would first say that, you know, musicians of that day, predominantly most of us learned to play in the school music programs. However, some musicians were born to play, and they can pick an instrument up and just play it because it's God's gift to them. Right. Most of us learned through the school music program. So, of course, I mean, there were some great bands all over Washington, D.C. before go-go music, you know.
Yes,
I mean,
indeed.
really great bands.
Hell yeah.
And they fell off because they no longer could get gigs once this whole go-go thing started to take off and you know, grow and become something that it is today. But you know, at the time, nobody knew what was really going to happen. And I mean, we give credit to Chuck Brown for creating that avenue.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, I would say that you know, I'm always a fan of the music still, and I hear a lot of people's history on the origin of go-go music. The genesis of go-go music. Well, I'll tell you my version.
Let's hear it. That's what I want.
So, and I'm basing this version off of two people who were very near and dear to me in my life. My first cousin, Ricky Wellman, and Chuck Brown. Most people may not know that Chuck Brown and I were roommates for 2 to 3 years during the years I was playing with him.
Okay.
They both agree, both of their stories individually are the same. Chuck tells me, he told me that Grover Washington's 1974 song, Mr. Magic, really is, in my opinion, the national anthem of go-go. Okay. Especially back when it started.
Now, I want to get correct. I want to make sure, and this is why this. I'm going to tell you why this is important, because I just want to make sure we get the. Because one of the things was saying, because I kind of looked it up. Mr. Magic was kind of released in 75, correct?
Okay, 74, 71, whenever.
Yeah. I
That's fine.
The reason I'm saying that is because we're coming upon 50 years of go-go, so people are trying to decide: do we celebrate in 2025 or do we celebrate in 2026? And it looked like we're looking at 2026 because of the time that Mr. Magic was released in 75. But continue.
So during that time, there was no official go-go music. However, the bands that played around town, the fairs were called go-go's. So the go-go was an event.
Right.
So now keep in mind that at this time, Ricky, my cousin, the greatest drummer that I've ever heard in my life, was his father, who was the original member of the Searchers, our uncle, all three of our uncles, Frank Wellman.
Yes.
One of the original 4 Soul Searchers. There were only 4 in 1966. Chuck Brown on guitar, John Ewell on bass, Lloyd Pinchback on flute, and Chuck Brown. So it was just a 4-member band.
Right.
So when we were at our grandmother's house in those days, there was no internet or anything like that. So as kids, when it rained, we had to go inside and there was nothing to do but listen to records. But there was a photo album on my grandmother, affectionately known as Big Mama, on the coffee table. And in that photo album, we would flip through and we would see photos of the band, the Soul Searchers. They had on these light blue tuxedos. And so we're kids. So it made us fantasize about wanting to be one of them one day.
Right.
But to get back to the origin of the music, when at that time, the Soul Searchers already had 2 albums. Salt of the Earth, which was maybe 74, but the first album was We the People, where they had their first really, I would say, hit, and that was called We the People. Great band. However, when Kim Boy, the drummer, Kenny Scroggins at the time, departed, Chuck invited Ricky to come play with him, and I'm going to say the year is 1976.
So Ricky was how old then, like 16, 17?
Ricky was probably, Ricky was just out of high school because he was about to go to Maryland University, and then he joined the Searchers.
Okay.
So I would say in 76, Ricky was maybe 20.
Okay.
But keep in mind, Ricky was already a professional musician because he had recorded and he had played with many a group because I used to hang with him.
Right.
He played with everybody from Peaches and Herb to the Jaguars. And, we were going every Friday and Saturday night. We were hanging out. I'm going with Ricky to his gig because, it was exciting to us.
Okay.
Anyway, so Chuck, to get back to the story.
Uh-huh.
So Chuck, one night, convinced Ricky to keep playing that Mr. Magic beat at a consistent tempo, which is important.
Right.
And he knew that Ricky was going to be reluctant to do it because Ricky was such a just a miracle on drums, talent.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But Ricky listened, and he told Ricky, if you just play this beat and watch the floor, and Ricky did that.
Right.
Results are what it is today. I asked Ricky the same question, and Ricky said exactly what Chuck told me. So now, do you consider that the beginning, the genesis of a go-go beat? I do.
Yeah.
Because.
And I have to say in the interview that I did with Chuck back in 2007, and you can pull it up, he tells the exact same story. Yes.
And so to me, I think it was Chuck's idea, clearly, but it was Ricky's interpretation. Right. And the way Ricky played that simple beat that has made go-go music what it is today. It's the way, or as they say in the drummer's world, the swing he put in it.
It don't mean a thing without that swing, right?
It's the way he played that 4/4 Mr. Magic tempo. Right. Chuck also always said it reminded him growing up in the church of an old church beat.
Right.
So that's kind of how it started, in my opinion.
Okay. All right. There it is. Okay. And I appreciate that. Syeed, I want to ask you something because we're going to be going back and forth, but I want to get into Syeed's resume as well because you mentioned the first band that they started when they, him and his friends decided to start, and then he did, because I thought I would, the fact that as far as I know Prophecy, I remember just seeing you on the front, and I didn't see him before that time, but you've been doing that to this and I don't know if you remember, probably back in 2003, we at Team Go did an interview with y'all over,
I remember.
You know what I'm saying? And at that time, still is probably one of y'all top favorite songs of mine. My top favorite was the Jumping in the Bed, John. That's my jam still. You know what I'm saying? But, and I don't know if y'all still play that, but you should. At any rate, so I'm to assume those are the only two bands you play with, and how were you able to keep that going? Because we're talking Prophecy, we're talking a few decades now, and to this day, you're still gigging with that particular camp, And is it basically how did it become in your hands? I'm assuming it probably started in Kevin Jackson's hands, and can you take me through that a little bit?
Yeah, well, it did. The band was Kevin Jackson's, and
right.
Mr. and Mrs. Jackson, his parents. They managed the group, and
before we go further, just want to let the audience know Kevin Jackson, who runs Night Flight Studio now, and the husband of Stacey Lattisaw. But go ahead and continue.
Right. Prophecy stopped playing. They took a break. I think it was 88 or 89. Mm-hmm. And they basically was like, just take a break. And I knew when they said take a break, it was it. It was over. Instead of saying we breaking up or we're not continuing, they said take a break. And they never got back together. And I went off, got married, 2 kids. Mm-hmm. And when I got divorced, I did a little project with Doc Spencer from Air Raid, and with some Prophecy members, some Air Raid members, and we did a show, and that basically got me back into wanting to do the getting on stage again. So I contacted Jimmy, James Anthony, Slim Jim, and said, you know, what do you think about, you know, trying to call some of the guys and, you know, getting the band back together. So I tried that, and you know, most of the guys have moved on. I got a few in there, but a lot of people didn't take me serious. So basically, I couldn't use the name Prophecy Band and Show anymore, so I changed it to Prophecy Entertainment Music Group.
Oh, okay, that's the reason for the change. Okay.
Yes,
Name.
yes,
Okay.
right. So people wasn't taking me serious, like, yeah, whatever, it ain't gonna work or whatever. So what I did was I just basically put anybody in the basement and started practicing. And as I started doing that, people start coming. I had Howdy Doody, you know, when I first started, but he never did a show with me. You know, he was, you know, his work schedule and everything, and you know, his life schedule was a little busier than playing in the band, so he stepped off. And Jimmy asked a guy named Ron Joseph Butler, aka J Rock and Ron, to come and play congos. And he came in, he knew a lot of people, so he kind of schooled me on today's go-go. You know, it ain't, you know, he was letting me know it ain't like it was back in the day.
Right.
And Ron played with Mike Hughes and them and AMFM.
Right, I remember that too.
Yeah, he played over there with them. So from that point on, it just grew. I kept plugging away. It just grew, and it grew to what it is today. And right now, I got a unit today that, I mean, you couldn't pry these guys from me unless they quit. I love them. I love them to death. The whole gang. And like Steve said, which I really didn't realize or pay attention to it, I'm the last Wellman that's still doing go-go right now. You know, so that's basically my story. You know, as far as with how's Prophecy go, and I stuck with the name because I learned so much over there. Discipline, about the music, you know, because we never went in the basement and practiced a pocket. You know, our theory was, if the drum in the cargo is locked, then they got that. Just let's make this music tight, and if the music is tight, the rest will fall in place. And that's where we are today.
Okay, and that's the way it's rolling today. And I'm gonna ask you another question about that as well. When I get back to that, just basically, as far as today's go-go and all that. But I want to go and Kiggo, I had to mute your mic a little bit because we're getting a lot of air. But I'm gonna unmute your mic so I can ask this question, so we can go over your resume as far as, then, like you say, you mentioned where you started, you know, on the horn, and you want to learn your little dance steps. I'd have loved to have seen that. But,
me too.
You know,
I would have definitely loved to see that.
I can go and say that there was a time, and I'll tell you about that, because I actually played with two members of your family. I'll let you know who they are later if you don't already know. But anyway, but I would always hear about this guy Kiggo, this young dude Kiggo on drums, and every time I hear he was with EU, or he was with such and such, or he was with you know, just doing their thing, kind of thing. But just going and just read your resume out. You started with the first band and then continue on. What are the bands you played with over the years? And you've done more than go-go. So
absolutely. So go-go is my first love. So, you know, starting out, I'm gonna say my cousin DC version of a B-boy. You know, he came around the house, he had his sun visor on, his Nike tennis shoes with the cuffs at the bottom, and he had a boombox playing Trouble Funk, you know? And that's the first whole go-go tape that I sit on my grandmother's steps and would listen to. Then he, of course, would always, because like he said, he had the access to go to go-go's. I'm a kid in elementary school, right? So understand this. So what he would do, he had a tape of schoolboys, all the little happening go-go bands. But I remember him having a Trouble Funk tape, which back then was a big deal because it was definitely underground, right? So this is before my cousin Steve even played with EU, because I used to try to bug they band so until they run me out the rehearsal spot, you know what I mean? Talking about this go-go thing. So once my ears got conditioned to it, I was addicted to that sound, man, because go-go came from the hybrid of funk music. That's why to this day, if it ain't funky, it don't interest me. I like funk music to the end, right? So that it only had a band called Pep Boys out of Southeast Oxon Hill, Eastover side, but that was later on. We had a band called Pep Boys. I played home, right?
Okay.
So by the end of that little short two summers, right? So you do a good summer and a half, 2 summers of it, and they convinced me and Pep Boys to start playing drums, right? We had a drummer, Lou Swan, he was playing drums. When he didn't make it to rehearsal, you know, naturally I just sat on the drums, right? So eventually they said, man, you should keep playing drums. I said, nah, I want to play the horn. You should keep playing drums. So right there, ironically, Wally and myself, I went to drums from trumpet. Wally went to congos from saxophone. That's how that happened. So we both went to a band called Guest Band, which was still Fairmont Heights based band, and I had Keith, Rob Marshall, Mike, Rob Marshall's brother Dory, and we was getting pretty good. So our skills is getting better and better. Now we playing like Fairmont Heights Homecoming, right? So now I'm all in. I'm all in. So I'm a go-go head. I'm going to every go-go that was an all-age go-go. So that was the Black Hole, Cherries, WST, Wilmer's Park, and every rec and high school, right? So now I'm addicted to this thing. It was another group in St. Pleasant called PC Groovers. So in my mind, you wasn't a group not unless you had sponsorship. Sponsorship meaning a manager that afford to get you a PA system, right? So just like Sa said, Omega wasn't bad. It's just that Prophecy had more expensive instruments. So that's what made them good. They had real congos. Back in the day, the broke go-go bands would have 4-bit congos. The bands with the money had the junior LPs or gum box, as we call them, right? So same with me. I went to PC Groovers, so I'm 15 going on to 16 at this point, and I went to go to Wilmer's Park to see EU and Chuck and all the bands as we did, and I noticed that Juju wasn't playing with EU. So I knew Tino from playing rock with my Uncle Ghost, which Ghost actually played with EU before all our family, because he played with EU during the R&B days, the funk days. Right? So I had a relationship with Tino. I asked Tino to let me play. I said, man, you should let me play. And he said, yeah, you do play go-go music. That's just how I went. He was waxing his car, listening to Black Sabbath in front of my house, which is a rock group.
Right.
So him and Ghost, they was deep in the heavy metal, right? So I said, man, you know, I'm riding a bicycle. I said, man, you know, I saw y'all in Wilmer's Park. Y'all need me playing drums. So he laughed, but then he gave it a thought and said, you know what? I'm going to take you to practice next week because we got auditions. And you better not be scared and you better not let me down because I'm going to big you up to bear. And then the manager, Ted Hopkins, right? Rest in peace, Ted. So that's how that happened. So all of my peers in school and friends was like, some of them was like, man, he ain't gonna make it with no EU, man. He's 16. How he gonna? But I've always been self-motivated, right? And I said, I'm gonna take this chance. Now, if I come back to school the next day, which was a Wednesday, if I come back on Thursday and I didn't make it, then I got to do the walk of shame. Because, you know, they telling me, man, you with PC Grooves, how you going to make it with EU? You can't even get in the club. You ain't old enough, which they were true. But I wasn't worried about that because I heard the stories from my cousin Ricky when he was a kid. He was so good that they still allowed him to play. You just couldn't go by the bar. So I knew stuff that they didn't know because I had, you know, older peers in my family that were already successful. So I went to audition, right? And granted, I used to hang around Prophecy all the time, and Kevin Jackson used to teach me things about the business and drums, things of such. And I was just kind of backup drummer who never got a chance to back him up. So I would like shadow him, right? And his dad, Mr. Jackson, rest in peace, loved me. You know what I mean? He would call me Kaliko. He never called me Kiggo. He would call me Kaliko, right? So I was this young kid hanging around all the time, watching, taking notes, watching. Every now and then, Kevin would let me practice a couple of songs with the band. And because I played left-handed, it would be towards the end, just to get it in with the whole unit. You know what I mean? So here I am, auditioning for EU. I made it. You had Keno, you had Ivan and Kent on keyboard. You had Toddy, Go-Go Mike, rest in peace, and myself. And they all took a liking to me because they didn't at Junie as well. So they were in disbelief that I knew all the Juju beats. I used to go up to all the go-go's. At this point, I didn't even dance no more. You know what I mean? I just studied Juju, studied everything he played, right? So it was stuck in me. I would go home and practice in my head what he did. So when band played the songs in that era of EU, I knew every beat he played, almost like a Weeds to a Foots, right? Like carbon copy. So that made the percussion section very happy and comfortable, which was Shorty Tim and Foxy Brown. I get the gig that night on Wednesday. So Ben said, okay, y'all, we got a gig this Friday. So I'm a kid. I'm like, will we play? He said, the Black Hole. That's our first gig. And Saturday, he said, this Saturday, we play Wilbur Pop, Cherries, and we're going to finish off at WST. So that's a triple gig, right? In my first week, right? That's a lot of drum playing.
Right.
So when I go back to school on Thursday, they like, so what happened? I say, I see y'all at the Black Hole on Friday. Be there. They didn't believe me, right? They didn't believe me. Just like they didn't believe that my family was in go-go so deep. I couldn't pay them to believe me that Ricky, Steve, Syeed was my first cousins.
Right.
They never believed it. They're like, how you gonna be some kin to Sugarfoot, Two Tone Steve, and Syeed? You lying, right? Right? Even in middle school, they didn't believe me, right? Until Steve gave me an official EU shirt, and he put Kiggo on the back of it. You know, and them felt names. It was the EU shirt, the symbol they had with the man and a woman like a butterfly.
Yeah.
And back then, you couldn't get no shirts from no band unless you had some sort of interconnect.
Right.
You wouldn't get no shirt. I was like the band. So he got me this blue and gray shirt, which used to be EU band colors, right? Ransom's red and white, and Trouble had their colors as well. So I got with EU. I played with EU for about over a year. I stepped away for a minute. We had a family tragedy, and I was a kid, so I kind of took it kind of hard. And meanwhile, Benny, my father, was always trying to how much they paying. So I probably gave him my number. And he said, well, I tell you what, I'll pay you more. Now I'm thinking, nah, I'll stay with EU at the time. Because I had already played the Capitol Center. I borrowed my cousin Syeed's suit so I can play at the Kennedy Center, where I got to meet Bo Diddley, all these people, right? And I'm still 16, I'm a kid. So, and I played, what else place we played? We played the Capitol Center. We played, of course, all the go-go venues.
Right.
And then I went from that run with EU, I went with Benny and the Masters. But during my break, I played one summer with Kato Sweat as a favor for Charlie Fenwick, my man, because Jimmy Jam was making a short run with Chuck Brown. So I played that summer with Hot Cold Sweat, but not officially all the way in the band, because as I said, it was just a favor for Charlie, right?
Right.
So you got Little Benny after EU, a short run with Hot Cold Sweat, back to Benny again when you and I played, and we used to ride through the gigs together in your little blue car you had.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? So we would go over your apartment, and you had the Frankie Beverly hand on your wall. Right? I didn't know you were the artist. I was amazed. He had it in his living room wall, the size of the wall, perfectly drawn. The maze hand, right? So me and Kato used to ride to the gigs together a lot.
Right.
In that run. So when we played Rest in Peace DC Wedding at the Panorama Room, Ben pulled me to the side and was like, I need you back. Because, you know, Juju playing with Chuck and doing what he doing, and we in the middle of our tour. So I said, we'll talk about it. But I didn't realize how serious he was, because I was working at the post office.
Right.
And he paged me 911, him and Tino, and like, hey man, what you gonna do? So we had the conversation. I'm at work. I work the graveyard shift. He said, this week, we starting the Carolinas. This is what you're gonna make. This is what you're gonna make at the end of the week. I walked back into my job like the officer and the gentleman and quit. Told my supervisor, I'm gone. And he couldn't believe it because the money he was making, and he was like, young man, you know what you're doing? What do you mean you're gonna walk away from his job? I say, man, I quit. So I went on the rest of the tour in the States. Then we went to Japan, then we went to Cuba, Panama, Antigua, Bermuda, and Honduras, and Puerto Rico. I was doing this all by the age of 21, touring the world with EU. So after EU, the tour ended in '93ish.
Right.
Band went to the hip huggers. They, through Juju
Yeah.
calling him to set in, and because Sugarfoot was playing with Chuck,
Yeah.
he missed the flight. They were playing at the Coach 4, which turned into Club U. I went to
Yeah.
set in with Chuck, unrehearsed, and just like EU, I studied all my cousin Rick beats. Right, I just knew what
Right.
he played. So Glenn and Louie, rest in peace, they called me to come set in. Foxy Rob co-signed because he was the conga player. He said, "Man, I gotta play with Kiggo." So, so Pops, who we call, Chuck Brown, we call him Pops. He went off that intuition, and I played with him for going on 7 years straight.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that run, I was set in like with proper utensils, with funk and things and such, because we
Right.
got cool playing with Chuck together. So
Right.
whenever he would do his proper utensils, the later version of proper utensils,
Right. Right.
he would give me a call, and then through the go-go vein, it opened up the door for me to do the national stuff, like record with Michelle Indigo Ocello, which is a Prophecy alumni,
Right.
right? Little Benny alumni, and Ray
Right.
Essence alumni by backing up Ned, right?
Right.
So she called me to go out to LA for a week to record on one of her albums,
Mm-hmm.
uh, which went well. And
Okay.
then I recorded with Roy Ayers.
Okay.
And all this is because of the go-go thing now. They
Right.
wanted that go-go swing. They wanted that feel,
Mm-hmm.
right? I played with Citizens Coat, which is a guitarist,
Right.
rapper type of thing, kind of like
Right.
Everlast. And I did hip hop stuff as well, all
Right.
because of the go-go vein, right? Of that
Right.
go-go thing. So now I'm playing with the Midnight Movers, which is Wilson Pickett's stage band, just like you had Chuck Brown and Bits and Pieces. The
Right.
Midnight Movers was like Mandrill. So the band leaders still get big royalty checks from people like the Outcasts, John Legend,
Yeah.
and many more sampling their music from the
Mm-hmm.
70s. It was the funk thing. Like, so what they do now is play a lot of agency gigs. So
Okay.
when I left Chuck in 2000 going on to '01,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I've been with the Midnight Movers ever since because for me it's heaven. Like I said, I love funk music. So all that
Yeah.
funk music from Stax on up to around Motown, all that Muscle Shoals
Right.
stuff with those white boys playing that funky music. They were laying down for uh, Aretha Franklin, things like that. That's the only thing I can play that I want to play because they got the
Right.
horns, they got the steps, and that's where it is now. So I left go-go music for that reason, and then I put together in between of that a band called MVP, and that's because the only way I can play go-go music is to play it on my terms, and that's with my friends, right?
Right.
So
Right.
that was Dwayne Lee, Demi Doc, Kevin Bright, my
Yeah.
cousin Newton on Congos, you know, um, and at the time we had Derek Holmes, which he got his band Vibe now,
Yeah.
So those are the groups and
Yeah.
go-go groups that I
Now I
played.
remember. Now because I remember MVP as well. Now I wanted to ask, which leads me. You mentioned that in the different projects, and even now, if we want to know you're on the road now, coming from playing. I wanted to ask y'all collectively, because like I said, I mentioned earlier, two members of your family I played with. One was Wally. Played with
Right.
Kiggo Wellman when we were playing for band, the original Periodicals band.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, you yourself, Kiggo, with Lil Benny and the Massive. Now,
Right.
coming from and you mentioned, I'm glad you mentioned Ghost, because coming from a large family of musicians, of artists like that, Ghost is another person I remember that I used to hear about him so much that I used to think the foot pedal Ghost was named after him, and and I
Yeah.
and I never even met him. I didn't even know how he looked. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Now this is me as a kid and all that kind of stuff. But and if you notice in the beginning of this session, I brought up the different bands, like I say, like the Silvers and the Isleys and all that. Growing up in a family full of musicians, and you all have stated, have you all ever done a project together? And if not, is there a reason for not? And it is not too late? I'm just asking about that.
Too many
Whenever
percussionists.
it's too many drummers
Too
because
many percussionists.
you got Syeed's sister Tanetta who played for the all girl group Royalty. She was a hell of a Congo player. I mean, mean, right?
Okay.
That was
Right.
the band that Vince managed, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I have my cousin Prescott from out of Chicago. He played, I would say, him and Rick are the most nationally successful artists in out of our family. Like because his list and platinum, he got platinum plaques all the way across his wall. He got the whole package, the drum endorsements.
Mm-hmm.
He's done liquor commercials with Smirnoff vodka, him and Pharrell Williams, where he
Mm-hmm.
kicking the drum beat. I don't know if you remember a time when they did a Smirnoff commercial and Pharrell Williams will be talking about a beat and like a magician he'll kind of uh, do a thing where he'll point in the air and he'll show the keyboard and show the different facets of music and it would
Mm-hmm.
show a drummer playing.
Mm-hmm.
That was my cousin, right?
Right.
So my cousin played with Brian McKnight for over 20 years. So he got to record with Earth, Wind and Fire, Christine Aguilera, uh, Justin Timberlake. So this is my first cousin. And him too got into that world of playing because when he would come down to visit for the summer, Steve would take us to Highland to see EU play.
Right.
And that energy got into him. So even though you have house music in Chicago, he knew how to officially play go-go beats
Mm-hmm.
because he would come down and get tapes with our family, and he got the bug as well. So that's why he learned how to play that pocket on a national level and not live in DC. You know what I mean? So it's very,
Right.
very that DC pocket and discipline
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of drummers may be boring, but as his rival Jamaican music, that pocket is very, very important.
Right.
Very important when you move a crowd. And you know what we
Okay.
used to talk about. That's how you build what we call the warm up. Because
Yeah.
that warm up is mean. Every go go
That's
band do it. I don't care when I play with Chuck Brown. The first song is going to be the warm up because it gives the PA to get right. It gives the band to get warm, and it just bridges that gap when you start coming into the next song,
Right.
right?
Right.
So yeah,
So
So
okay.
Kato,
Mm-hmm.
I did have the opportunity to play with Ricky for a couple of years with the Soul Searchers,
Okay.
and I've done gigs with Kiggo. As a matter of fact, I actually was that with Little Benny Kiggo.
yeah, the Capitol Center.
So when Benny, who was a great friend of mine because
Right.
we shared the same instrument. Of course, he's an entertainer. I was merely
Right.
a trumpeter, but he would have asked me to play his lines for him.
Right.
So he was out front entertaining on the big shows, and I was honored to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say this: So when you look at Kiggo and Syeed and myself, we're one of 47 grandchildren. I'll repeat that. We're three of the 47 grandchildren of James Franklin and Mamie Wellman, based in Fairmont Heights, Maryland. So there is a boatload of us.
Right.
And
well, I can say right quick, myself coming from a large family of 40 grandchildren, there was only two of us who played go-go. That was me and my first cousin Byron Jackson, BJ.
Well, I know BJ,
yeah. So that's still, I mean, with all those cousins, still there was only two that came out from the Jackson family that played go-go. There are other younger generations coming up, but there's still many in yours.
I can explain why, and why that is predominantly a family of drummers. So, from my grandparents, my grandfather, who had an elementary school education, he could stand behind a piano and play it. I don't even know if Kiggo and Syeed ever witnessed that.
No.
Never.
My granddad, he could play keyboard. All natural. We had one of our uncles, our Uncle Roy, played guitar when we were very young.
Right.
And I'm not sure Kiggo and Syeed were even born, but he was also a musician.
Right.
And then so on the front porch of the family home in Fairmont Heights, Maryland, there was a glass enclosed front porch. And my Uncle Frank, who was the founding member with the Soul Searchers, the original drummer, one of his drum sets was on the front porch of the house. And so as a result, subsequently, everybody, especially every male in the family, spent time sitting on those drums.
Okay.
And
I like that.
From Ricky to Ghost to Bootleg, on down to Kiggo, and probably half of Syeed's family, Syeed, Mustafa, and all, and I mean Syeed's sister Tanetta played percussion. She was a trumpeter. So that's why, we are predominantly a family of drummers.
Right.
Now, you mentioned Ghost.
Yeah.
As Kiggo always says, Ghost is the greatest drummer nobody ever heard. Because for some reason, Ghost never really pursued playing in bands on a continuous basis. He didn't have the same bug that the three of us had, and Ricky.
Okay. Interesting.
But I would ask Kiggo, because he's more of a drummer than I am. As far as the talent in the family, I don't know if there was anybody with any more talent than Ghost, except for Ricky. Ricky was a prodigy. Ricky he was born to play the drums. No sooner than my Uncle Frank set him on his knee to teach him how to play, he was better than his own father in 5 minutes.
Right.
And I guess, you can attest to that, but look to the heights in which he played. I mean, let's be, in my day and age, before go-go music in the late 60s and early 70s, for me being a horn player, I felt I was like, out the family, I'm the only one. Kiggo started, but I stayed with it. My brother played saxophone for a short while.
Right. Okay.
I think Syeed, you mentioned somebody in your family played woodwinds for a minute. But so I stayed with it. But so I came from an era, with me, I was born in 1957. So I was watching the Ed Sullivan Show in the early 60s, and we saw James Brown and the Fabulous Flames. And that was a self-contained band. That's a band of musicians and singers, and every bit of music coming off of that stage and on that record came within the band.
Right.
So that was my era. So I grew up idolizing Kool and the Gang, Chicago, Sly and Family Stone, especially. There was also, then on down to the Howell Players. There was a group called Cold Blood. And I don't know if you remember this, but Cold Blood was like an underground self-contained band. They were from the Bay Area. And there was a song called Shop Talk, which every drummer in my era, that was how you could judge a guy on whether he could play. Because if he could play the solo on that song, then you were good. And so it went on down the road with Earth, Wind and Fire, of course, Parliament Funkadelic, Mandrill, New Birth. All these were self-contained bands with normally 8 to 10 or 12 guys that just played wonderful music, you know. But I say that to say, my major influence were the Soul Searchers. Because again, as little kids, we fantasized looking through the photo albums of the band. So, of course, we were too young to go to a club.
Right.
But one time, my Aunt Bootsy, who was Kiggo's mom, she came in the house. She and her friend had taped the Soul Searchers on a cassette tape. And so the friend had come over to the house to visit with Bootsy, and he put the tape in. And I'm talking about before Boombox. It's a little skinny tape.
Yeah.
And I sat there mesmerized, listened to that cassette tape of the Soul Searchers until the point where he was about to leave. You know, he came to get his tape, and he looked at me. I guess the look on my face was, he's like, you know what? You just keep that. He just left. And then, fortunately, Bootsy took me down to Green Acres, which is the outdoor pavilion down in Southern Maryland, which, you know, I'm young enough to go there. And that's when I saw the Soul Searchers for the first time. I would say that was maybe 71, 72. They had I think they were just putting out We the People. And I stood there, and it was breathtaking to me. And I think all four of us went through that as musicians. At some point, you became mesmerized by somebody.
Yeah, buddy.
You know, I'm sure there were some guitar players that you saw that just blew your mind.
Yes, indeed.
So for me, I stood there and watched Arnold Tillery play the trumpet, and he became the template to what a stage band trumpet player or an ensemble horn player, how he was supposed to play the trumpet. What it should sound like, the intonation, the phrasing, when to use your upper register. I'm talking technicality.
Right.
Playing a particular instrument. And I learned all that from Donald. And even to today, I adore Donald Tillery. He is incredible. And little Benny, God rest his soul, would tell you the same thing.
Yeah, he has. Yeah.
And as well as the rest of the Searchers, John Buchanan, a Notre Dame graduate who wrote all the horn lines on those albums. I mean, he was just he was incredible. And Lloyd Pinchback, who today, to me, has written the best Soul Searcher song of all time, Ashley's Roach Clip.
Ashley's Roach Clip, yeah.
If you close your eyes and listen, that song is one great composition. And so that's kind of how it started for me, how the family became a family full of drummers, and, you know, we moved forward.
Okay. Yeah, I got Lloyd's book. Rest in peace to him as well. I got his book.
Yes, I do as well.
Yeah. And let me ask you, Steve, yourself, you sat, I just want to put this out there and make sure I got it correct. You sat in the producer's seat for a while working with Shine, right?
Yeah, that was a period of time when I joined EU in 81. And, you know, it was the greatest plan. I'm EU for life.
Right.
Peter Bear is one of my best friends in life. That's my brother.
Right.
And we'll always be kindred spirits. But during that period of time, I was young. Right. And there was a guy from Fairmont Heights by the name of Robert Freeman, better known as Shine.
Right.
And Shine was a bassist coming up. He played in a group called the Groove Makers. They were from Chapel Oaks, Fairmont Heights. Very good band as well. But Shine had the presence of mind to want to record music, where all the rest of us, we were perfecting our craft as musicians.
Right.
He had the gift of gab, and he ended up with studio time. At the time, I think it was Douglas Records, Lou from Douglas Records.
I remember Douglas.
He ended up with funding and we would go at 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at night, and we would go to a Rest recording studio at 14th and K, up on one of the top floors, and we were staying there until the sun came up. And that's actually how we started. We recorded Experience Unlimited. We had a song called Come Party With Us, which was
Come Party With Us. I remember that.
And then on the backside, we had Eric Handing singing the second time around. But even after that, you know, Shine, we would convince what we considered now affectionately the little boy bands. Because in those, let's be honest, in those days, every neighborhood had a band.
Yes, indeed.
Yep.
Right? And we're talking about in the early years of go-go, 82, 83.
Yes, indeed.
And so we would go to these bands and ask them if they wanted to record. In those days, you would record what they called extended play. It's like it's the size of an album. And so we would take groups in the studio, and Shine would produce them for the most part. I was assistant producer. And let me see, the bands we took in were, I think we started with the Peacemakers. And
that's the album. That's the album that starts off with the Hollywood Swingers, right?
Yeah.
Was that the album? You gonna dun dun?
I could imagine. Yeah,
that was it. That was it. You gotta get it. That was a long time ago, man. Poor fella. It's all right.
I think that was the only thing Peacemakers released that I know of.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
No, that was the album. They was one of the groups. Keep going, cuz.
So it was Peacemakers, and then we did Petworth from up northwest off of Georgia Avenue.
Yeah, I had that one too.
Then we did the Pump Blenders.
I had that one too.
We did Reds and the Boys.
Okay.
And then we went to Virginia, and there was a group. What's my man's name?
Shady Groove.
Now I'll tell you a funny story, and this involves Syeed. We approached Prophecy, and so Prophecy, the parents wanted to meet with us,
right.
And so we went to meet with them. And so if you know Shine, I wouldn't say he was really the type of person you would immediately entrust, because he carried him. He had a Don King persona, if you know what I mean.
Like a used car salesman.
Oh yeah. So we went and we wanted to give them an opportunity to record as well, but the parents, the managers of the band, they said no. I think they thought maybe we were there to rip them off. But to be honest with you, Kato, we were there to give young kids opportunity that we didn't have. Right. When I was in high school, there was nobody willing to record my band.
Right.
But we were giving that opportunity to young kids, and we weren't doing it for the money. We were doing it for the love of the music. And we had great success because at the time, WOL was AM. That's when Kathy Stevens had her station on 8th Street North, 4th and 8th, maybe Northeast.
Yeah, it was 4th and 8th. I remember.
And if I'm remembering correctly, at a certain time of night, she would just let it be go-go. And so the DJs could play all these go-go albums that we were putting out.
Yeah, Coleman was a DJ.
Yes, but more importantly, every go-go band from every section of the city, you could walk around and be a star in your own neighborhood because people would hear your recordings on the radio. I didn't have that opportunity when I was in high school. So it was a great thing. And I'll tell you, even in the rare occasion today that I run into somebody from the go-go world, quite often it's somebody from one of those bands that we recorded who, and a lot of times, unfortunately, I may not remember. It's been a long time. But they'll tell me, you guys took us in the studio and, and that's a very warm feeling that I get to be able to provide and help people along in the path that I travel. And I feel the same way with Kiggo, because when Kiggo was little, not so much Syeed, because Syeed didn't live at my grandmother's house. But Kiggo was at my grandmother's house, so it was nothing for me to go scoop him up and throw him in the back of my 72 Ford Pinto, and we go to a gig. And he was just soaking all this stuff in. Kiggo was a very quiet, child. He wasn't a playful type of kid who wanted to run around that crazy. Kiggo was always sitting there looking. You know, he was just taking it all in. And so we had great times together.
Okay. All right. Look like he might be having some buffering issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool though.
But Steve, that prophecy, that was before I was in the band though. That recording, I wasn't there yet. I heard about it,
right?
I wasn't there yet. I wasn't there yet. And I heard about that when I got there. And I was like, wow, that's disappointing. But, you know, because, I mean, I don't know the reasons why, but, you know, and I'm not sure who was all in the band when that took place, you know, but I heard about that. Yeah, I did hear about that.
Respectfully, they had good management and they had their parents behind them.
Yeah.
And the parents were protecting their young children. So I understood. Yeah. But I think what they didn't understood is we were giving opportunity that they would never get elsewhere.
Right.
You know, I mean, from my era, you know, there were so many great musicians coming up in the late 60s, early 70s, but it wasn't like Berry Gordy was coming to town knocking on people's doors and saying, come on, let's go. You had those opportunities yourself.
And that's what I'm saying. That played a major part in the history of go-go, because even now when people talk about the early heydays of go-go, these are the albums that they talk about when they talk about when the bands were releasing their music. And like I said, they may have hit like a bridge to some other song, but they had their own music at the time. I mean, I remember the Petworth joint had my favorite joint, that Who That Trying to Be Bad joint that Cavalier used to do, you know. And so that made that major point, you know, that you and Sean were doing, that made a major impact in history when people look back and say, how come go-go isn't doing what it did in the heydays? That's what we're talking about. As a matter of fact, I mean, it leads to the question, because we're almost coming down to wind down time. As we look at, as you guys been in the game all these years, and you look at the scene and the genre of today, you know, what are your thoughts on it? Has it progressed? Has it, or you know, or what do you see in it? Because the biggest thing I see now is, even now when you see a new band, one thing everybody mentioned, we all agree we were all kids still in school when we were doing this. And now if you see a new band come out, these cats are in their 40s and 50s and not teenage kids like we were at the time. Are you seeing the same thing, or what are you seeing?
I'm gonna defer to Syeed and Kiggo. So I'm glad that Syeed's on with us, because Syeed is our bridge into go-go today, because he's still active out in the go-go community, performing all the time. Kiggo similarly, but Kiggo plays more than just go-go music.
Right.
I'll say this before I turn it over to them to answer your question.
Mm-hmm.
I can only say that during the era in which I played, the 80s, from the early 80s to the late 80s, we created grooves in the go-go's, and then we recorded them. Now, I'm not saying that all these songs were great songs, but we trusted on our instincts and the grooves that formulated within the go-go's themselves, and we recorded that. I don't know if that's the situation now, because I'm not out there. But you know, I think our era, the era that I was in, was, I'm very proud that we really had a lot of confidence in what we were creating, and we pushed that. And to that point, I think, and you know, this is just my opinion.
Right.
I listened to some of the initial go-go songs of the initial go-go bands. To me, E-flat Boogie by Trouble, Body Moves by Rare Essence, and Knock 'Em Out Sugar Ray, or EU Freeze by EU. To me, those are still some of my favorite recordings. I
Same
think
here.
they epitomized what the music really was.
Right. I totally agree. Syeed, what you
Hey,
got to
so
say?
I mean, today's go-go is way different than when we was coming up, in the early '80s up to the '90s. Back then, the bands, everything that they did was more geared to the call and response.
Right.
That's pretty much gone. And you gotta remember when we was coming up too, Chuck basically was the only band that was playing in clubs. You know what I mean? So it wasn't no alcohol involved. We was going to recs and high schools, and
Right.
we wasn't really going to clubs to see bands. It was until after I got out of high school, whatever, 18. Then you had RSVP and some of these spots, but you wasn't dealing with alcohol. Um, Today's go-go is more geared to the people for what the people listen to because everything is radio oriented. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
And that's what's getting the people in there now because you're hitting their favorite song from the radio and you just put your twist on it, which that's what they did in the early '80s and everything. Everything Essence did was a song, Chuck did was a song from their genre that they just put their twist on it. If you didn't
Right.
know that song that they was hitting, I'm gonna tell you this one story. My stepdad, one day I was playing Chuck. I'm playing a Chuck tape. And he walked by the room and he said, "Who is that?" And I said, "Chuck Brown." He said, "No, it's not." I said, "Yeah, that's Chuck Brown." I said, "Yeah, that's Chuck Brown." He said, "No, the song is not Chuck Brown." I'm like, "Man, you crazy. This Chuck, this original." And what it was a "There I go, there I go, there I go." And he took me upstairs, put a record on, and that was the song. And that song was so slow, you couldn't even dance to it. You couldn't
It was
slow dance
best.
to it or anything. And I was like, wow. So if he'd have never told me that song was somebody else's, I would have always thought that was an original Chuck song. You understand what I'm saying? Because a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
people, they holler about go-go bands need to bring originality back and all that. I mean, I agree to disagree to some extent because a lot of stuff that they played was radio stuff from their era, and they just put their twist on it and made it theirs. You understand what I'm saying? But today's, huh?
I think that's what the difference is. Because I understand what you're saying. I think
Yeah,
I think back then they put the twist on it, and today they just play it straight.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then, far as right now, like Steve said, every neighborhood had a band. Right now, and what you said, the guys coming out starting bands, they're in their 40s, 30s, whatever. But there's a new form of go-go out here right now called bounce beat. And that's where the kids are out of school now are doing. That's what they're doing. So that's going to be pretty much what's going on in the next couple of years. Just bounce beat. I have nothing against bounce beat. I just think what it is these kids took and made a band out of a marching band. That's what it sounds like. That's what the bounce beat reminds me of. Sitting there watching a marching band perform.
Right.
Now, every bounce beat band that I've seen, they'll play just like we play. Grown and Sexy first 2 or 3 songs. But the rest of the show is nothing but timbales banging, drums offbeat, syncopated offbeat, and a lot of call and response. That's the new form of go-go out here. They don't even like to acknowledge it as go-go.
Well,
It's bounce beat.
actually, that's not even new no more. I mean, bounce
Yeah,
beat
right,
is 20.
exactly.
It's 20 years old now. You know
Wow.
what I'm saying?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
It came out in
And it's
2003.
and it's and they packing buildings. I mean, I'm struggling to get people in. You go to one of them shows, you can't even get in.
Right.
I mean, they packing venues. I'm like, gracious, alive. but
But even
that's
but
that's a new
even
form.
We have to
right, but
understand that music is a fine art, and
Yeah,
fine art is going to evolve with generations.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so,
yeah.
in my opinion, when you're involved in something in fine arts, you do what you do, and just like you paint a picture and you hang it on the wall, and then somebody may walk by and say that's a great picture, or somebody might say that's the worst picture I've ever seen in my life. But once you do what you do, the next person picks it up and they create their
From what they see of that picture, yeah,
that's
yeah,
correct.
yeah, yeah.
So
I
it's
mean, I remember talking to T-Bone from Trouble Funk, and the way T-Bone basically explained it, that I thought was a good explanation, is he's basically saying they hear different than what we hear. The beat that the beat they count, they even count different. You know what I'm saying? To them, our count, the way we count is like
It's
old.
off.
It's like,
right.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's like off. Like, they'll hear something that, like, say for example, you know how everybody, for some reason, everybody crazy about the Highland tape, right? But they'll hear it and say, I don't get it. So what's so hype about this? You know what I'm saying? It's kind of funny. Um, but it just lets you know the generations, and that's with any form of music. Look at hip hop. Look at R&B. It's
Yeah.
it's not this exact same as it was. So that's my agree. Like I said, as we get ready to wrap up, we definitely got to wrap because we don't know. Okay, we pushing about almost an hour and a half. I guess anything that I want to roll out saying or leave advice
Now, I want
to
I,
aspiring musicians.
I want to say now I still want to comment
Yeah, go
on
ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
you saying the generation of music, man.
Mm-hmm.
How I see it is this: everything has a hybrid. When Chuck Brown went on tour for Bustin' Loose, it left the EUs, the Razzins, and the Trouble Funk
Mm-hmm.
a wide open lane, and like the club LeBarons and things of such. Even though I was a kid, this is my research. When my
Mm-hmm.
cousin Ricky came back in town, he stated that Foots and Jungle Boogie had transformed what they left, and they took the breakdowns and lengthened them. He said
Mm-hmm.
Red Essence and the younger bands were playing less music, more pockets, because
Right.
that's what got the crowd hype. Chuck Brown didn't do those pockets as long as EU, Trouble Funk, and Red Essence did. So
Right.
when Rick said he came back, he said he couldn't believe it. They was playing the breakdown was damn near half the show. And they built the grooves, the hits, and the call and response off the breakdown.
Off the breakdown.
Just like hip hop got the get down. They said hell with trying to play all this music that we can play. We trying to get the women on the floor. We gonna play this breakdown longer. And every time the Funks and the Bennies and the Big Ponies and Dykes and the EU Bear, they took that, right? So
Yeah.
then you got coming through the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
After Dougie Fresh, I mean, after Teddy Riley did the show, the breakdown was when Foot started playing open hi-hat
Yeah, you was right first.
off,
Dougie
off,
Fresh. Dougie Fresh.
off the show,
Teddy Riley.
off
Yeah.
that song. So
Yeah.
eventually, Foots came up with the grand idea to start opening our hi-hat on more songs. He's the first drummer who did that for a length of time.
Right.
Now you got the hybrid of Work the Walls and then Backyard playing. They taking a Work the Wall beat and Buggy putting his spin on the Work the Wall beat and
Mm-hmm.
came up with him and Hot Sauce version. So they took another hybrid and said, hell with the closed hi-hat and the pocket. We're going to take the hyper. We're going to take this shit even higher.
Right.
We're going to play it way longer than Rare Essence and ever did it, right?
Right.
So now you got the bounce beat bands that said, well, hell with the Congos. We just going to play the work the world beat through the whole show, pretty much.
Right.
And we're gonna take. See, you see what I'm saying? So every 10 years, you get a hybrid or something. In basketball, now they just shooting 3-pointers. They don't even check each other. They say, hell with that. I'm just gonna put up a 3 and put all these points on the board.
Yeah.
And every 10 years, something changed. So the bounce beat people said, I mean, they can play closed hi-hat, as Sai said. They can play it, but they want to get people hyped off the break, right? So when I would come back and play with EU, and we would play with these bounce beat bands, I would purposely get there early enough to watch them and watch the crowd. That's what I'm intrigued with as a percussionist. I'm watching that crowd. And I said, oh, this makes sense to me. I get it. I get why my children like the bounce beat. Because it's straight off the hype. And let's be real. It's the difference between metal rock and roll and Steely Dan or any laid back rock group. You got head banging rock and you got different versions of rock and roll. With bounce beat, is a hybrid of work the walls in such a fact that they don't play the Congos much. I watched the Congo players stand there, and the dude was playing on the Thundertoms.
Yeah.
He was playing on the timbales all night. The Congo player didn't play 3 beats.
Nope.
And they had the crowd dancing like you hooked up electricity to them. Now, ain't nobody 30 on up want to dance to that. It's not for us. It's for the energy to keep people young moving, right? When I was young, I didn't listen to Chuck Brown when I was super young, other than the fact that my cousin played and their musicianship was impeccable.
Right.
I listened to the Rare Essence, the Troubles, and the EU's taking it to the bridge. Chuck Brown Congo player had 2 Congos rolling. I wasn't intrigued by that, other than the fact I would rather see Jungle Boogie lick his fingers and cross his hands and play animated. You see what I'm saying? So that's how music goes. That's what happened to music. They started playing less music and more beat. And they all about that breakdown beat for the whole show. And that's just it. You know, so old school. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I honestly gotta tell you that right there was probably the best breakdown I ever heard explained of anybody.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it really is. Because I think, matter of fact, the way you explain it would help an older person who don't like it understand and say, "Oh yeah,
man, absolutely." Because
you're right.
I'm a percussionist, and I respect the game, right? I respect all the game. So when I put my ears to the street, I'm dissecting things because you have to make sense of it. How would this work? How can we make it work? Right? So they just every 10 years you get a hybrid of something. A hybrid. And that 10 years, boy, when I would go see my son play basketball in high school, I would see close to what Sai said, I would see the school band. The drummer would go straight into a bounce beat.
Right.
And they would play on the timbales. And when you talking about watching being in a high school gym, I never saw the energy for 2 hours ever in my career of music. And I've been there to see Rare Essence play at Paramount Heights. When I was a kid, you go up there and see Essence play. I was in middle school, right? Atomic Dog was out. Essence
Right.
up front of Heights playing, right? And I'm amazed at them. But people kind of dance and two step, even though we were young. But it wasn't to the breakdown when they started saying bow wow wow yippee yo yippee yay, and Jungle Boogie started getting the sting off on the Congo.
Right.
That's when the go-go just went ecstatic. But the youngins, they say they don't want to warm up. They want to come out and give you
Right.
ecstatic the whole show. And nothing is wrong with that, dude.
Right.
When you think about it,
Yeah.
No, it's
Yeah.
not.
No.
it's all about the energy. Just like when Rick came back and he said, Kiggo, I was blown away. Because when I came back and saw Foots playing, he said, I'm almost taking lessons from him. Because I'm like, damn man, you ain't playing nothing. And he realized less was more.
Oh yeah,
Hell with me doing all these drum rolls and all these triple kicks and all that. So he had to learn how to dumb down his playing
wow.
to make that crowd move, else they was gonna be washed up. He gonna be washed
Right.
up. Nobody was gonna want to hear two congos all night. That's why
Yeah,
Chuck had to learn to say, okay, this is what these youngins doing now. Let me get my crowd back. Let me not be mad that they taking my groove where they want to go with it. Let me get with them. Because
right.
I got to keep these people on the floor. And that's why he had me and Foxy Rob. Because we were the youngest people in his band. And he said, see, son, y'all don't get mad when I make y'all play for 3 hours straight. Because y'all can handle it. If I had the old guys, my age, they'd be cursing me out right now. Because they don't want to play all that. But see, y'all can play the old and the new. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? So he was
Yeah.
always smart enough to stay relevant because he said, I'm going to get rid of the two Congo player. He brought in Heartbeat. And that
Right.
evolved, and he brought in Chucky, right?
Right.
That
Right.
evolved from the two Congo thing. And
Right.
it made him say, I can still be the old man on stage, but I can give them women a little more of what they want, so I just won't be like washed up sound. So he transitioned to roll call all night on his music
Yes.
because of that. Because
That's
of
it.
that.
Can
You
I
know
ask
what
you
I
guys?
mean? So
Can I
Go
ask you
ahead.
guys a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
And
Huh?
this is for the three of you all.
Mhm.
Go-go music today.
Mhm.
I don't know where it stands versus years past, but my question is, why are there no national recordings coming out of go-go music nowadays? I'm not saying
I would
that in years past there were a lot, but every
let
5, 10
me let me let me answer that. That's because this is the difference. You got a choice. You got a choice. Either the band take their money, bands cost money. Let's be real. The prophecies, the air raids, all them bands, members didn't make money because their money was in equipment and what it takes to make a band be self-contained. Bands today, every paid. So who's going to invest in studio time? Who's going to do that? See, back in the day, you had a manager who managed the money, and they and the Teds and the Rios and things such. They made the bands record to compete and try to get on a national level. Bands today, they take it like nobody. You have to invest in your product because y'all keep saying why ain't nobody recording. But think about it. You know how much it costs to go in the studio. Who wants to put their money back into a band and something may not come out of it? No band. It
Pretty
hasn't been a
much.
new go-go song It hasn't been a new song, album, CD since Chuck Brown, Beautiful World, Beautiful Life, whatever he put out.
Yeah.
Nobody's putting nothing new out.
Well,
I'm not talking about no live PA tape or PA CD from a show. That don't count. I'm talking about going to the studio and putting out some material. It doesn't exist because the grown and sexy bands are not that type of go-go band.
well,
None of them to this date has recorded.
right. Another thing I want to
It
add
costs
to
money.
that. Yeah, another thing I want to add to that too is because of over the years, because of the unsuccessful attempts of the older years, I guess as time going on, go-go has become, when we talking go-go, it has now become, I would say, 85% about the party and 25% about the music. The music got to be tight and they got to crank. But everybody's goal now is to get gigs and play and to get on shows. It's more.
Look, man,
They're more focused on getting the party than they are
go-go
releasing music.
bands who didn't know any better came to the point almost a lot of them hustling backwards. When you gotta pay a promoter to play, that's hustling backwards. When you gotta sell your own tickets and perform, that's hustling backwards. You follow what I'm saying? A lot of people don't know the blueprint. Let's be real. I've always said kindly, the biggest go-go has ever been was in the 80s. Period. Just the fact. Trouble Funk, one of the most sampled go-go bands, all they hits was in the 80s. Pump Me Up, Get Small, so on and so on. Right? Bustin' Loose, Go-Go Swing, the first successful live album done in the 80s.
Right.
The 80s, School Days, the 80s, the videos from EU, Signed with Virgin, the 80s, Junkyard, Tougher Than Leather, Sardines, all that stuff, the 80s, Def Jam with Junkyard, the 80s, Reds and the Boys Moving and Grooving, the 80s, last but not least, the Go-Go Movie, the 80s, Max Kidd promoting Go-Go, the 80s. The Capitol Center, the largest successful go-go recording ever done in one night, the 80s. That era was the biggest on fire. EU playing at the Budweiser Superfest, the 80s. Playing for a dark birthday party, the 80s. Like, after the 80s, the bands started getting an autopilot because it takes money to run a band. So now you got the only person making real money consistently than a few bands are the soundmen. They get a guaranteed stock of money for bringing drums, congos, and backline and PA. It may be crickets in the room. It may be crickets. You go to the grown and sexy music. I'm not downing it, but it's quite fucking boring. It ain't got a high. It ain't got a low. So if you're not going to energize somebody, all that cool shit, you couldn't play Malcolm X Day. That's a big feel to make jump. A lot of these grown and sexy bands can't handle a big feel like that. Let's be real. That cool shit don't work. What are you going to say to get the crowd moving from the stage to the skating ring? I played with Benny and EU, and a lot of bands couldn't handle that feel, man. Trouble Rasses, that cool stuff, just chasing the radio, it's not going to work when every go-go band that play grown and sexy sound alike. They play the same song. The DJ play the same song, and then on top of that, they play Ray Elson songs and Chuck Brown songs. That we would have never done that. I would have never opened up for Ransom in our little band and started playing a one-on-one. You would have never got to open up for them ever. You know. So when you got lazy music, Chuck Brown said it the best. You know what I mean? Minimal effort give you minimal results. And that's what it is. It's people 40 on up coming home from work, liking go-go, and they stop past a little bar, and if you got 100 people, you may be doing all right. And the club already small. Think about it. What's the biggest room that the Grown and Sexy era and go-go had? That was the place on 450 on Thursday nights. What's that place up there?
No, on film 450.
LaFontaine Blue.
LaFontaine Blue.
Right. LaFontaine Blue, yeah.
LaFontaine Blue was the biggest venue on a Thursday night that Grown and Sexy had. Because other than that, it had to be the known promoter. People wasn't coming for the band. They was coming for the promoter. The dudes in the street ring bells. They can pack a club with a DJ. But they thought it'd be cute to throw a Grown and Sexy band in there. Just because. So the narrative has changed. It changed from the band bringing the people in to the promoter. The promoter can say, I can get any band to play on my night, whether I get you or not.
It ain't even that way no more, Kiggo. The promoters ain't even bringing people in the place. They expect to promote, and they expect for the band to bring the people. You the promoter.
But that's what I said. Anytime you got the band selling tickets, they say here go 200 tickets. Y'all sell them, and that's how y'all gonna get paid.
Right.
So when that happens, it's a wrap. Because if you a guy who never experienced getting a real payday in this game, you don't know any better. Because you don't know the secret. You out here playing on hard, and you don't know the guys making $400-500 a night. You never had that. They paying a band $500. How can a band, if I was in a band and I only was gonna get $500, I would have to have the baddest motherfuckers in the city and say, we're gonna take this $500 a night to go record with it. Because we gotta get out this hole. But I'll be damn if we'll pay each guy $50, $60. What the fuck y'all riding? Scooters to the gig? It don't make sense. And here is rap music who was right there by go-go music coming up the same hard way. They was a little smarter by investing in their music. Because if they would have stayed in Rex and free paps, rap music wouldn't in New York wouldn't have evolved the way it did today. Somebody had to make a business of it. Because paying for free and pulling up with a truck with all your speakers on it and letting different MCs rap for $3.99, what's the business in that? Eventually you want to leave and go into the service and go get a job. You know what I mean? So what you said, Kato, with all these 40 and 50-year-old guys coming out with their bucket list, I want to play go-go music again. That's because they can afford to play it. They're not doing it for no money. They're doing it sip on their cognac on the front line. Who wants to pay to see people drinking cognac on the front line? That's not entertaining. We call that velvet. That's like going to a Vegas show and see Sammy Davis Jr. drinking some cognac out of a glass. But the only thing, he had a lot of diamond rings on and necklaces to bring the who's who into place. So when you think of it like that, the band and show don't exist. Who wants to see a bunch of old people drinking cognac and playing a cover song? What's intriguing about that? That's not what we went to go see.
Right.
Rare Essence put on a red and white, whether it be leather, a sweatsuit, something. Peacemakers put on black and gold. Rare Essence, EU wore gray and blue. So you saw something. You saw a show that was intriguing. But if you're not giving that, what you think you're gonna get out of it? What you think
What you
you're gonna?
getting out
That's
of it right
why.
now?
No,
Yeah.
that's why. I'm being honest. That's why right now, other than Familiar Faces at one time being the hottest grown and sexy band, that's why you're not getting them at, Constitution Hall, opening up for rap groups and things of such. Not too much. Because what are they gonna play? You name me five grown and sexy bands that's bringing in an average 25, 3,500 a night, and you tell me one song they got that's original. Vibe, none. Familiar Faces, they had 911, that don't count. They were go-go band. Familiar Faces don't have any songs. I can't name one because they were playing Rare Essence songs that Donnell wrote. So give me one grown and sexy band before I get off this thing here. They got a song to relate them to say that's their shit. Southern Courtside Down in the Back, that don't count. That's a cover song with a little roll call beat to it.
But I really gotta say we touching on, because I can name songs by those groups. Now we're touching on the subject we actually don't have time for right now. We're touching on the
Right.
subject of being able to market and getting their music played. Because I can
Yeah, but you
actually name
gotta
a song. You see what I'm saying? But
name. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Name one because if I put my ears to radio,
I can, for example, Vibe got a song called "I Met a Girl" that they released a couple of years ago, right? That really got no play. Nobody even know about it. I got it. I got a copy of it.
send it to me to my email because I want to hear. Because listen.
I ain't never heard it.
Hey, listen, radio has never played go-go music in history for free 99. They are waiting for go-go songs. When I talk to Shorty, they are waiting for go-go songs.
No,
they only play the same song.
No. See what I'm saying? We in 2 hours in. So this is a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
We can come back later and talk about it.
This is another episode.
Right? Yeah, man, because that's a whole nother can of worms. I'm gonna send you a rack of stuff. I got a joint by Belladonna. When I say Bella, you say Donna. Nice joint. Ain't never been heard. Ain't never got any play. I'm telling you, I keep in mind because I did the online. I was doing the online radio joint. I was getting copied of these joints. These are joints that you cannot get radio to play. They always got some excuse. I remember one time that's what I'm saying. That's a whole nother.
But you're right. That's another issue right there because, like you said, today's radio is not go-go friendly, Steve and Kato and Kiggo, like it was in the 80s.
Yeah.
Not at all. Not at all. You basically have to take your stuff, if you do come up with it, somewhere else to make it come back here.
Yeah.
Hey, Sha, but go-go music, that's not true, brother. The radio now, even the radio stations now say we play R&B, rap, and go-go.
Yeah,
they never said that. But I'm making a point though. They never said, like when I had MVP, Dwayne Lee and I went up to 93.9, took our single. We went to 95.5, gave our single to Flex. Flex played that joint back to back. Back to back. Just because of what he liked. So people, everything you right. Maybe some people don't like it. And so you got to go back to the drawing board. That's okay.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
'cause you
pretty
like one
much.
song don't mean it sounds good. let's
Now,
be
see,
let's be real. Go over and listen to it.
Exactly, exactly,
But let's
exactly. Don't
get
mean it's
back
a
to the
hit.
subject at hand. And we don't want to bash the genre or anything of that sort.
No, I'm not. I don't even use that word. We're not saying bashing. We talking business. We asked he asked the question, where is go-go at its peak? It's got to be a reason bands don't want to go to the studio and write music.
I
It's an
guarantee
epic.
you. I guarantee you. Once we, like I say, I really got to cut this, but
Okay.
I will send you. I will send you material. I got tons and tons. Tom Goldfogle, a couple of years ago, they even tried to create this thing called New Music Month, where bands was okay. We're gonna submit something every New Music Month. I got all this stuff. I'm gonna let you hear it. You're gonna hear what I'm talking about.
I want to hear. It has to be mixed and mastered, though. I don't want to hear PA level.
No, I'm not. Look who you talking to. I'm not talking
All
about
right,
PA tapes or nothing like that. I'm
No,
talking about.
I'm saying it has to be mixed and mastered.
Of course, mix and master.
Every song has to be on a certain level. A lot of bands don't do mix and master. They go to the studio and get it halfway done, and it's clear, but it's not radio ready.
You talking gatekeeping. At the same time, you saying that, but at the same time, there's a 14, 15-year-old in his bedroom making a joint with his iPhone and putting that up on Spotify and hitting numbers like crazy. So
absolutely,
it's all about the receiver, not the gatekeeper telling you this ain't good enough. It's about
right.
Let them say if it's good enough. That's I can't. I'm not a fan of gatekeepers saying, "Oh, this ain't a hit," just because you don't like it personally. It's not about that.
Right.
It's about the product, and it's about. I'm gonna tell you right now, it's about the image. Andre 3000 put out a crap album of him blowing an air flute, and they was calling him a genius, and it had nothing to do with no mixing and mastering. You know what I'm saying? So, but like I say, that's a whole nother topic.
Well, that's a different politics because he already sold numbers. He's been a multi-platinum artist. Certain things a millionaire can do that 100 can't do.
It's all about
100,000.
Of course, it's about the machine. Right. But those records that Shine was putting out was getting quality airtime, and the people knew
this a whole nother conversation. It's trying to wrap this up. Up.
Hey, look here. Yeah, let's wrap it up because we over 2. But I really appreciate y'all. But we gotta get together and talk this rap talk.
You don't even put this stuff on it. Don't even put this on the sidebar conversation. So don't even put this on whatever situation.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Why not? Wait a minute. Why not? Because it's still
because it's really not. It really holds no weight, and you never wanna make the bands feel. But like when I hear guys say, I'm trying to put go-go on the map, then I look at it like you haven't done your history. Because go-go has already went certified gold through Bustin' Loose. The first go-go song went gold. Right. So how you gonna put that on the map? Like Trouble Funk is the most sampled go-go band and all these national levels of music that you can't put on the map. It's already on the map.
But see,
the map is done.
But this is why you don't cut stuff like this. Because if somebody say that, then you correct them. If somebody is wrong with you say no. And you just the way I'm correcting you. You say none of them has released music, and I'm gonna show you after this.
No, what I'm saying I'm saying I haven't heard it.
Right.
I haven't heard it, and I haven't. Look, you have to still self-promote in this machine. You got to treat yourself like an indie label. If you put out a song, you must take that song to every club and drop that song and watch that dance floor. That's what
Come
you
on,
do.
man. Wrap it up, man.
Anyway,
Wrap
look,
this
let
up.
me let you say. Yeah, I really appreciate you guys. I really appreciate. There's some good stuff here. I mean, stuff we talked about even before that. Just good historical stuff that whoever don't know about your history do know about it, and that's the whole point of it anyway. So, Big Brother Steve Coleman, Kiggo Wellman, Syeed Mahdi. I really don't go nowhere. I'm gonna shut it down, but don't go nowhere. What? Watch. Hold on 1 second. Wait a minute. Let me shut it down right quick.